It was my first year of university, that strange in-between phase where you're excited to finally be on your own, but constantly feel like you're one wrong decision away from messing everything up. And I had barely finished unpacking my dorm room, half my clothes still in bags, posters not even on the wall yet, when my roommate Dale finally arrived, and right away something about him felt off, starting with the handshake he gave me, limp and cold, like he didn't really understand the point of it. And when I tried to break the ice by asking normal questions, where he was from, what his major was, if he was nervous about school, he answered every single one with stiff, awkward one-word replies, never asking anything back, never really making eye contact, which I tried to excuse as social anxiety, because honestly a lot of people are awkward their first week, but that excuse didn't last long, because a few nights later, I woke up randomly, in the middle of the night, with that awful feeling that someone was watching me, the room dimly lit by pale moonlight coming through the window. And when my eyes adjusted, I realized Dale was sitting upright on the edge of his bed, completely still, not on his phone, not moving around, just staring directly at me with this blank, unblinking expression. And I froze, pretending to be asleep while my heart pounded, and after what felt like forever, he slowly lay back down like nothing had happened, which left me lying there until morning, replaying the image over and over in my head. And things only got worse when during orientation, a few days later, I spotted him sitting alone behind some bushes, away from everyone else, crouched in the dirt and quietly rubbing his hands along the bark of a tree, like he was lost in some private ritual, completely unaware, or maybe fully aware of anyone watching him. And at that point, my gut feeling was screaming at me that this wasn't normal, so I went straight to housing and asked for a room change. But they told me it would take a day or two to process, and when I returned to the dorm that evening, the lights were off, and Dale was sitting in a chair facing the door as if he'd been waiting, and that's when I noticed small details that made my stomach drop, like my laptop being closed differently than I left it, and my clothes shifted around in my drawers, nothing missing, but everything clearly touched. And later that night, I caught him going through my backpack, his hands freezing when I turned on the light, only for him to act confused and deny everything in this flat, emotionless voice, which was the final straw. So I grabbed my essentials and slept on a friend's floor, moving out officially the next morning, convinced that once I was out of that room, the nightmare would be over, except it wasn't, because a few nights later, in my new dorm, I woke up to a faint clicking sound, barely audible at first, like metal softly tapping metal, and when I focused, I realized it was my doorknob being gently twisted back and forth, and through the peephole I saw Dale standing there, his face partially in shadow, fiddling with the lock, until campus police arrived and caught him right there, walking him away in handcuffs while he never once looked back at me. And I never saw him again, which should have been comforting, but somehow wasn't. And that was just one of several unsettling campus stories I heard, because at Binghamton University, a group of friends were sitting around a small fire late at night in a secluded nature preserve, laughing and talking about nothing important, enjoying the quiet, until they started hearing branches snapping in the darkness just beyond the firelight, at first brushing it off as an animal until the sound began moving in a slow circle around them, each crack coming from a different direction, tightening closer and closer, and before they could react, a massive branch suddenly flew out of the darkness and landed straight in the fire, exploding sparks everywhere, followed seconds later by another branch that struck one of them directly in the face, sending them into pure panic as they grabbed their stuff and ran back toward campus without looking back, later locking themselves in their dorm room and watching from the window as a tall, shadowy figure paced slowly at the edge of the woods, as if deciding whether to follow. And then there was the student from a University of Iowa party school who let his roommate convince him to go to a sketchy underground frat house far from campus, hidden away in a rundown area where the bass shook the walls and the air smelled like sweat and alcohol, and a heavy-set guy handed him a tiny bottle of liquor, promising it would get him completely wasted fast, and after drinking it, he felt dizzy almost instantly before everything went black, only to wake minutes later in a dark, muffled room with his head spinning, hearing a disturbing crunching sound coming from inside a closet, like someone stepping on a plastic bag over and over again, which triggered pure survival instinct as he stumbled to his feet and sprinted out of the house, later realizing he'd been drugged and had narrowly escaped something far worse. And finally, there was the sophomore living alone in a secluded single dorm who started hearing light taps on his door late at night, spaced out enough that he could almost convince himself they Lungal-Tarkariddle weren't real, until the tapping slowly escalated into aggressive knocking that echoed down the empty hallway. And one night when he flung the door open and chased the sound, he saw a figure slip into the bathroom at the end of the hall, burst inside, checked every stall, and found nothing except a pair of heavy black boots sitting neatly on the floor with no one wearing them, followed immediately by the echo of a creepy old man's giggle filling the room, and after that he locked himself inside his dorm as the knocking returned, one final time, louder than ever. And to this day, he still doesn't know who or what was tormenting him, only that some things you encounter in college don't stay behind when you graduate.